You ever try to explain something complicated and just end up with a tangled mess of words? Well, today, we're diving into a super powerful tool that cuts right through all that confusion, the flowchart. We're going to see how a few simple shapes and lines can map out basically any idea and create a picture that's crystal clear from start to finish.
I mean, seriously, think about it. You could write this long, super detailed paragraph of instructions, but that's where people get totally lost, right? What if there was a better way? A kind of universal language that shows you the entire flow of actions and decisions in just one glance. That's exactly the problem we're solving today.
You probably don't even realize it, but you're already thinking in flowcharts. Just take your morning commute. You leave the house, you check the time. Is it before 7 a.m.? If yeah, you take the bus. If no, you gotta take the subway. That simple little decision map you just ran through in your head, that is a flowchart.
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll cover what a flowchart actually is. Then, we'll learn its special language of shapes. After that, we'll see how to build steps and decisions, check out some real-world examples, and finally, we'll talk about why visualizing logic is such a game-changing skill.
So what is a flowchart, really? At its heart, it's a map, plain and simple. But instead of mapping out roads and cities, it maps out the steps of a process. It shows you exactly how to get from point A to point B, turning a confusing list of instructions into a totally clear visual journey.
And listen, this isn't some obscure little tool only a few people use. Flowcharts are one of the most famous and widely used diagrams in the entire world. You see them everywhere, from software development and manufacturing to just managing a business. They are a fundamental way to communicate how things work.
Okay, so to read this map, we need to learn the language. And that language is all about shapes. Each shape has a very specific meaning, kind of like letters in an alphabet. Once you know what they mean, you can read and create any flowchart you come across.
Whoa! Okay, that looks like a lot, right? This is pretty much the full alphabet of flowchart symbols. But don't worry, you don't need to know all of them. We're just going to focus on the 4 most important ones that really form the foundation of almost every flowchart you'll ever see.
First up, the oval. This one is super easy. It's basically the bookends for your process. You will always see one at the very beginning that says start and one at the very end that says end. It just gives you clear boundaries for what you're looking at.
Next up is the parallelogram. This shape is all about communication. It shows up anytime the process needs to get information in, like you typing something, or send information out, like showing a result on a screen. Input and output. That's the parallelogram.
And now for the real workhorse, the rectangle. This is where the action happens. A rectangle stands for a specific process, or a calculation, or some instruction that has to be done. You can just think of it as the to-do box in your diagram.
And finally, maybe the most powerful shape of them all, the rhombus, or as most of us call it, the diamond. This is where your flowchart gets a brain. It represents a decision. There's always a question inside the diamond, and depending on the answer, usually a simple yes or no, the path splits and goes in different directions.
Okay, so we've got our letters. Now let's start building some words and sentences. We're going to see how these simple shapes connect with arrows to create everything from a straight, simple process to some really complex branching logic.
Let's start with something really simple and linear. This flowchart just converts feet into centimeters. And notice how it follows all the rules we just talked about. It starts with that start oval, uses a parallelogram to get the input, a rectangle to do the math, another parallelogram to show the output, and then it finishes with a stop oval. A perfect, straight line right from top to bottom.
Now let's see what a difference just one shape can make. On the left, we've got our simple conversion chart. On the right, a flowchart that checks the temperature. See that diamond right in the middle? It asks a question. Is the temp less than 32? And depending on the answer, yes or no, the process follows a totally different path. That one shape is what gives a flowchart all its logical power.
And here's the really cool part. By just combining these simple shapes and rules, we can start to map out some incredibly sophisticated logic. So now let's see how these building blocks can tackle much bigger problems.
Now take a close look at this one. Don't even worry about the words in the boxes, just focus on the arrows. See how the path after the diamond can actually circle back on itself? That's called a loop. It lets the process repeat a bunch of actions over and over again until some condition is met. It's how you can make a program do repetitive work, like adding up a whole long series of numbers.
And it can get way more advanced. This flowchart here maps out the logic for figuring out if a number is a prime number. It's got multiple decision diamonds, it's got loops. I mean, trying to write this out in a paragraph would be so confusing, right? but the visual map makes this complex flow of logic so much easier to follow.
So this brings us to the big so what? Why does any of this matter? Well, it matters because seeing a process laid out visually just makes it instantly more understandable. It makes it easier to fix when it's broken and way simpler to explain to other people.
All right, let's nail down the key takeaways. First, flowcharts make complicated logic visible and just easy to follow. Second, they're an amazing learning tool, helping you understand how a program flows without getting lost in the code. And maybe the most important thing for professionals, they help you plan. Mapping out your logic first will save you from so many headaches down the line.
And that leaves me with one last thought for you. Now that you have this tool in your back pocket, what's a process or a complex decision in your own life, whether it's planning a project, trying to buy something, or even just figuring out what's for dinner, that you could map out? Seriously, think about it. Visualizing the logic might just give you the exact clarity you've been looking for.